Hello, Psychology of Learning students. So the purpose of this video, very short video hopefully, will be to give you a little bit more information about the behavioral modification project. So right before spring break, one of your classmates called and she just had a whole bunch of questions. And I really like the video that Dr. Stephanie Stern created. And so I'm going to ask you to watch this video after you've seen the one that Dr. Stephanie Stern did. So Dr. Stern will go through the narrative observation form. She'll go through exactly what the rubric looks like and the instructions in detail. So if you haven't seen that video yet, stop this one and go watch hers first. But after you've watched hers, I'm hoping that this video will just give you a little bit more clarification to help you with the project. So in the spring semester of 2022, the behavioral modification project will be due on Sunday, May 1st by 11:59 p.m. And since it's going to take, as you know, at least 9 days to do the assignment, because you've got 5 days of tracking your behavior now, and then 4 days of implementing your behavior modification plan. So it's a minimum of 9 days. So if you just count back 9 days from May 1st, you'd have to start at the absolute latest, April 21st. But if you do it that way, you're not going to have time to think about anything. So like for me, after tracking the behavior for 5 days, I would need time to think, to sit there and look at it. What is going on? What would be a good plan? What would be a good punisher? What would be a good reinforcer? What do I really want to do? What is leading to this behavior and making it continue? I would need like a day or two to figure out a good plan. And then I'd implement the plan for 4 days. Then I'd need a day or two to write this up. Like to write it all in 1 hour, I wouldn't be able to do that and do a decent job on it. So I really think that practically speaking, the latest day that you could start this project and still do well on it would be April 18th. But April 18th is the week of exam 3. So I strongly recommend that you guys begin April 11th. So if you begin April 11th, you'll have 5 days of doing it. Then you'll have like the weekend to really think about your plan, and then you'll be implementing the plan as you study for exam 3. And then you'll take exam 3 and then you can write it up. And I don't think you'll end up with a time crunch. So it's almost April 1st as I'm videotaping this, a couple days away. So really you need to get started within the next 2 weeks, ideally. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit let me just give you an overview again about the project. So you want to pick a behavior. It's going to be so much easier. You pick a behavior that occurs a couple times a day. So some of you are planning on doing, biting your nails. You want to do that less. Some of you want to curse less. Some of you want to do exercise more. These are all good ones, ones that should be very doable. But it's going to be a lot harder if you're trying to do something that you're trying to decrease something that doesn't happen that often. You're going to have a much harder time if that's what's going on. So some of you want to use your phone less and you're on your phone a lot. These are great ones to do. So the example that I'm going to do, just because no one's doing anything like this and I didn't want to help someone with their project and everyone else figure it out on their own, is I'm going to do ice cream. Okay, so I love to eat ice cream. It's a thing. So let's say that the behavior that I'm going to choose is eating ice cream and I want to reduce it. Why do I want to reduce this target behavior? Well, because I eat ice cream so much and it's got so many calories, I'm obese, and the obesity is going to lead to some, or could potentially lead to some health issues as I age. So eating less ice cream and having fewer calories will help me have fewer health issues in the next 20 years. So that's why I want to do this. Okay, so given that that's what I want to do, I then would pull out my narrative observation form. Now, when you look at the form, it's written as though the behavior happens many, 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 many times in a day. So there's like one form for each of the 5 days. But I don't eat ice cream like 10 times a day. I might swear 10 times a day, or I think there's like 20 lines in there. I may swear 20 times a day or something like that, but I probably bite my nails or peel my nails 20 times a day. So those of you that are doing things that happen a whole bunch of times in a day, you can use the narrative observation form exactly as it's written, and you'll put the date on the top, and then you'll fill it through. Someone like me who's choosing ice cream eating ice cream that probably only happens twice a day, I'm probably going to create a form that's similar but different, where it'll say I'll write or type narrative observation form at the top, but then my first column will probably say date and time. Then I'll have my antecedent column, my behavior column, and my outcome or consequence column. Okay, so what I'm going to do is for the next 5 days, every time that I go to eat ice cream, after I'm done eating ice cream, I'm going to pull out either my computer or my phone or the piece of paper where I'm putting all this information. And eventually what you give to me needs to be typed. So I think it would be easier to put this into your laptop. That way you can just, turn that in. But do it however you want works for you. So let's say I was coming home from work and I was really tired, but I had done a lot of grading and I felt good about how much grading I'd done, but I still had a lot of grading to do. I was really tired. And so when I walked in, I was like, ooh, I'm going to treat myself to some ice cream. So that's my antecedent. I was feeling tired. I knew my thoughts were that I had a lot of work to do, but I felt like it accomplished and sort of deserved to be a little rewarded for what I had accomplished. So my thoughts, my feelings, where I was driving home from work and I first walked into my house. Those are all the antecedents. Then my behavior is I went to the refrigerator and I pulled out the Brahms ice cream and I took the container and I took 2 heaping tablespoons and I put it in a bowl and I poured milk on it and I swished it around, and then I made it last for 15 bites. I took a whole bunch of very small bites, and each bite I just savored as the cold filled my mouth and went down my throat. So that's my behavior. So I'm going to write that all out. And then my consequence or outcome. What happened after? When it was done, the ice cream just gave me a surge of energy. I was like, whew, okay, I am ready. I've had my little treat. I feel like I've gotten more than I deserve, and I'm ready to start grading again. So it's time for me to sit down at the kitchen table and get to grading. And my thoughts were, oh, am I lucky I just had that ice cream? And my feelings were, my throat feels all coated with coolness, and my stomach feels cool and full, and I feel energized. And like I just had an awesome reward, and now it's time for me to get down to work. And so that's my outcome. So that would be my first row. That's my incident or my data point for that first time I had ice cream in these 5 days. Now, the next time I ate ice cream, again, I'd write it down. So this might be my husband and I were watching TV and he said, "Are you going to get some ice cream?" So we were having a good time laughing and talking about all different things. And he went and put ice cream in a bowl for me and handed me the ice cream. So the antecedent is my husband and I are having a great time talking and sharing our day and laughing about things. And we're about to watch TV and he brings me a bowl of ice cream and I'm kind of excited to have ice cream with him and excited to be with him and all these pleasant feelings. And the behavior is that I ate the ice cream very quickly and it tasted really good. And then the outcome or the consequence was my stomach feels really good, filled with this ice cream. And but my thoughts are, man, if I keep eating ice cream like this, I am never going to get out of this obese category. And I'm probably going to have some issues as I age. I really need to stop this. So it's like positive feelings about how fun the ice cream was and how fun it is to be with my husband, but some negative thoughts about how this can't continue. You got to stop this. So that would be, so I put the date and time and then the antecedent behavior and consequence. That's the next row in my narrative observation form. I'm going to keep doing this for 5 days and tracking my behavior. Now, when the 5 days is over, I'm going to share the screen for a minute. I can start to write up the first part of this project. You don't have to start writing up now, but you could. So just to offer some more clarification, especially for like a student who's like, I'm not really sure exactly what to do. This is going to tell you exactly how many points you're going to get for each part of it. So when I go to, I can start writing the summary, the paper that I'm going to turn in now, or I could at least write these notes down so I know to include it in the paper. I need to describe the target behavior. In this case, ice cream eating. Describe why I'm choosing to manipulate the behavior. I want to reduce the amount of ice cream that I eat because continuing to eat ice cream is keeping me obese, which is going to cause me health issues in the future. So you can see there's 5 points for stating the behavior, the target behavior very clearly, eating ice cream, and 5 points for describing why I want to change my behavior here, because it's keeping me obese and I want to, and I'm afraid at this weight, I'll have health issues in the future. Step 3, I'll get 5 points just for turning in that narrative observation form that has all of the rows of each of the incidences or each of the data points that happened for the first 5 days. Now here it says that you want about 20 or 25 data points. If you do the behavior 4 times a day, then you'll have 20 data points. If it's eating ice cream, I don't do that more than twice a day, so I'd only have 10 data points. But you want to pick something that has a lot of data points. Like if you're only doing it once a day, you're going to be doing this on 5 data points. It's going to be a lot harder to do. And if you're doing it less than 5 times a day, it's going to even be that much harder. Okay, so you're going to submit that form, that narrative observation form for the tracking before you implement the plan. For that first 5 days is worth 5 points. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this narrative observation form. I'm going to look at it all. I'm going to look for patterns. What are the antecedents a lot? Like, are there many days where I seem to be doing this right when I come home from work, when I've accomplished a lot of work, but I still have a lot of work to do when I get home? Is that what's going on? Am I doing this a lot with time with my husband or time with friends? I'm going to look for patterns here. And as I'm looking for these patterns, I'm going to be seeing what has been associated. So I'm going to think in terms of classical conditioning. What has been associated with the ice cream or with the behavior? Does that kind of make sense? And so one thing that's really clear is when I look at the consequences or the outcomes, I feel energized a lot from the ice cream. So I can think of, okay, my unconditioned response is energy. What might have been leading to that energy that would have, like, I didn't need any learning to take place? And that might be the sugar. So the unconditioned stimulus is the sugar that's leading to the unconditioned response of energy. And then the conditioned stimulus is the ice cream. The ice cream was paired with the sugar because initially when I was eating ice cream, it was the kind with sugar. And now the ice cream that I eat has no sugar in it. So, I mean, it's not the sugar that's leading to energy anymore. The ice cream I eat now doesn't even have, it's sugar-free ice cream. So it's not causing the energy. But yet I have this boost of energy from eating it. So my conditioned stimulus was the ice cream that was paired with the unconditioned stimulus of sugar that led to, so now the ice cream leads to the conditioned response of energy. And it's not due to the sugar because there's no sugar in the ice cream anymore. It's energy due to the ice cream. So can you see how I'm using unconditioned stimulus with sugar, unconditioned response with energy? The ice cream, the conditioned stimulus, was paired with the sugar, the unconditioned stimulus, multiple times in my life, so that now ice cream alone, the conditioned stimulus, leads to the conditioned response of energy. Another form of classical conditioning when I look at this narrative observation form is when I look at some of the outcomes or consequences is I tend to have very positive feelings. So what's something that's leading to positive feelings that I didn't need to be taught or learned? Like it's inborn in the system. Well, time with someone that I really enjoy. So the unconditioned stimulus is time with my husband, and the unconditioned response is a positive feeling. And what has been paired with time with my husband? This eating of ice cream. It's something that we do a lot of times when we're relaxing together. So the conditioned response of ice cream has been paired with the the conditioned stimulus of ice cream has been paired with the unconditioned stimulus of time with my husband enough so that now the ice cream, even if I'm not eating it with my husband, leads to the conditioned response of these positive feelings. So I can look at my narrative observation form to try to understand what is creating some of the responses that I have to the cues that are around the behavior that I'm trying to change. Does that kind of make sense? And that is helping me understand how classical conditioning has led to some of this behavior, some of my feelings and thoughts towards ice cream in this case. Also, you're going to talk about any time that operant conditioning could have occurred here. So the taste of the ice cream to me is such a positive reinforcement for having accomplished some work in my office. If I've done a good job grading, I notice if I've graded a lot in a day, then when I come home, I'm much more likely, if I'm looking through my narrative observation form, a lot of times I'm eating ice cream when I come home after having done a pretty decent job with grading, but I still have grading to do. So clearly I'm using eating ice cream as a positive reinforcement for me to grade. And so like, ooh, okay, now that's an interesting thing here. I can also look at how eating ice cream is being positively reinforced. It's being positively reinforced because it tastes so good. It's being positively reinforced with fun time, relaxing time sitting on the couch with my husband. So I can really look and try to explore, why is this ice cream eating behavior being maintained? What created it? That's the classical conditioning. And the classical conditioning helps me understand a lot of the feelings that I'm having from it. And then what's maintaining it? What operant conditioning? How am I being rewarded or reinforced for doing this? So in this situation, like when I first come home from work, I want to do this behavior. What's reinforcing it to keep me doing this in this situation? Make sense? So this is what you're going to write about, number 4. And this is where 25 points, it's a quarter of the whole assignment, is describing how operant conditioning using positive reinforcer, negative reinforcer, positive punisher, negative punisher. You need to use all those words. You want to talk about the reinforcement reinforcement schedule that you're on, schedule of reinforcement. So for me, it's when I'm looking at the 2 things that I described to you, those were both continuous reinforcement schedules. Every time I ate the ice cream, I was like energized to do work. Every time I ate the ice cream, I had positive feelings. So I'm being reinforced on a continuous reinforcement schedule. Does that kind of make sense? So all of that you're going to talk about in number 4. You're going to talk about, make sure you identify US, UR, CS, CR. If you have problems identifying some of this stuff, we may need to talk over the phone, or we might need to have a Zoom meeting where you show me your narrative observation form and we try to explore what was leading to this. Does that kind of make sense? So that's why I'm saying if you wait until April 21st to do this and you have trouble here, you might end up with some issues. So starting, about April 11th is a good time to start, okay? So we've talked about number 4. Now you need to come up with a behavioral modification plan. So in your plan, you're going to have to use operant conditioning. So if I want to reduce how much I'm eating ice cream, so I am not going to use a reinforcer because reinforcers increase the behavior, right? I need to come up with a punisher. I need to come up with punishers that I will give myself every time I've eaten. After I've eaten ice cream, I'm now going to have to implement some kind of a punisher. If I implement the punisher every time, then that's a continuous punishment schedule. If I do it every 3rd time, then that would be, a fixed ratio punishment schedule. So like that's one thing I'm going to do. I probably also want to reinforce behaviors that do not involve eating ice cream. So the times that I come home when I have done a lot of grading, but still have a lot of grading to do, and I'm feeling rather lethargic and kind of like I need energy, if instead of eating ice cream, I go for a quick walk around the block. Does that make sense? And if it's already dark, then I do a quick walk on the treadmill. And just for 10 minutes, just walk, get the blood pumping, give myself energy that way. and I use that as a reward. Now, in my brain, that's going to give me energy. I'm not sure how rewarded I'm going to feel by that. So maybe I think of another reward that I could give myself for doing the grading that I did before that I could do while I'm on the treadmill. So maybe what I let is I love TED Talks. They're like my favorite thing. I might say, since I got that much grading done, I'm not going to eat the ice cream this time because that's making me overweight or more than overweight, obese. I'm going to get on the treadmill to give myself energy. I'm going to watch a TED Talk. I love watching TED Talks. So the TED Talk is sort of a reward for how much work I did before, and the walking will give me the energy. And I'm going to do that for 10 minutes instead of eating the ice cream. And every time I choose to do that and don't eat the ice cream, I'm going to reinforce myself with something. I'm going to use a positive reinforcer or a negative reinforcer. And I might not even do it every time. I might do it every 3 times or every 5 times. But every time that it's a situation that I usually go to ice cream, that I don't go to ice cream, then I might decide to reinforce myself every time I get on the treadmill for 10 minutes and watch a TED Talk instead of eating ice cream. Then at the end of that night, I am going to, reinforce myself by letting myself watch a half hour of crazy TV, something like a guilty pleasure TV show, that Inventing Anna or something. Okay. Or maybe I'm going to let myself watch another TED Talk if I find that reinforcing. Or maybe I'll give myself, I love to play on my phone what is it called? Wordle. It's like a word game. But of course, I think it is called Wordle. I'm looking it up really quick. Wordle. But I limit myself to 5 minutes. Otherwise, I'll play it like forever. Maybe if I do that, I'll give myself a half hour on Wordle. That's a positive reinforcement at the end of the day for not eating the ice cream, for choosing alternate behaviors. So I want to punish the behavior I want to do less of, and I want to reinforce every time I choose different behavior patterns. Does that kind of make sense? So I'm going to come up with this behavior plan. You have to think about it really hard. It needs to be very detailed, and you're going to write it up. You're going to talk about positive reinforcers, negative reinforcers, positive punishers, negative punishers. Which of those are you using? The schedule of reinforcement and punishers that you're using. Incompatible behavior. So if my husband says, do you want to have ice cream? Rather than eating ice cream, let's eat popcorn. You're not going to want to eat popcorn and ice cream together. That would be disgusting. So let's have popcorn instead. It's a lot fewer calories. So I'm going to come up with this behavior plan. Now, your behavior plan, you should not be coming up with that now before you've had your 5 days of tracking your behavior. I've seen students do that. They're like, and I could see in the discussion boards that you guys were writing, a lot of you are like, I think I'm going to reward it with this, or I'm going to reinforce it with this, or I'll use this as a punisher. I want you to, in an ideal world, wait. It's good to have those ideas in mind. But wait and really look at your narrative observation form for the first 5 days. Look at that tracking behavior to see exactly what's causing this behavior and what will work really well for you to get rid of it or to increase it if you're trying to do a behavior that you're trying to increase. So you're going to come up with this behavior modification plan. And you're going to describe it in really good detail. That's worth another 25 points. So again, that's a quarter of it is coming up with a really good plan. Then for the next 4 days, you're going to implement the plan. You're going to do it. And as you're implementing the plan, you're going to go back to using that narrative observation form. But now I'm like, I'll put my antecedent before I have the ice cream, my behavior of eating the ice cream. But my consequence of the ice cream now might be like, I felt good that I ate the ice cream, but then one of the punishers that I gave myself, a positive punisher, is that every time I ate ice cream, I was going to have to, take a rubber band and go bing, 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 bing 5 times on my wrist. Well, that's going to be really uncomfortable. I mean, it's not going to cause any pain. It's not self-harm, but it's uncomfortable. So I had to endure 5 bings of the rubber band, and that didn't feel good. That's now going to be new because I'm adding that as an outcome for the ice cream. So every time I eat it, does that make sense? So for the next 4 days, I'm going to use that narrative observation form to track my eating of ice cream still. What happened before, when I ate the ice cream, and what happened during the behavior, and then at the end, the outcome or the consequence. And as you can see, turning in that second narrative observation form. And for some of you, if it's a behavior you do a lot, you may have more than one page, but you're going to turn that in for 5 points. Then you are in your summary that you're giving to me in the project. The final paper is about 4 or 5 pages long, double spaced with 1-inch margins all the way along. If it's longer than 5 pages, so be it. But it's 5 pages of writing it up, and then you'll have the pages for the narrative observation forms. The 5 pages do not include the narrative observation forms. So in this summary, I'm going to now evaluate the extent to which the behavior modification plan was successful. Now, here's the deal. I don't care if it didn't work at all. You're not going to lose even 1 point. If I come up with a plan and I ended up eating more ice cream, not only did I not improve the behavior, it went in the opposite direction, I would not even lose 1 point. I don't care whether it worked or not. What I do care about is, do you understand the principles and why it could have worked and what happened that made it not work? Does that make sense? So you're showing me that you understand all the classical and operant condition principles more than were you actually successful in doing this. So you're going to state whether the behavior increased, decreased, or stayed the same, and you won't lose points no matter what happens. But you do need to tell me what did happen. You look at the first 5 days, how much was this happening on average each day? Now the last 4, how much is it happening on average each day? And you're going to discuss which reinforcers or punishers or incompatible behaviors were most successful in modifying the behavior, and which didn't really work at all, and which had the opposite effect. And state how likely you think you'll be able to maintain this behavior change in the future. Like the rubber bands, did you notice you're like, that kind of made me so uncomfortable that now I don't even like wearing a bracelet. So I'm going to stop that. Like that didn't work. But walking on the treadmill with watching the TED Talks as an incompatible behavior, as something to do instead, and getting reinforced for that, that worked really well. It did give me energy, and I got the TED Talk, so I got that sense of reward. It seemed to fill the need that the ice cream was filling, and I got more time on Wordle at night. I think that's going to work. The rubber band, the punishment thing, I don't think I'm going to continue that, but this is going to work. The eating the popcorn, my husband was like, I don't really want popcorn 3 nights in a row. We'll have ice cream 3 nights in a row. So that didn't work as well. So you're going to evaluate what worked and what didn't, what will be maintained in the future and what you think would not be maintained in the future. And you can see that's worth 10 points. Then in step 8, another 10 points is associated with your stating which approach, classical or operant conditioning, was more useful in helping you to understand your behavior. And at least last spring when I taught this course, that was so based on the behavior that you were, on what ended up leading to the behavior that you had chosen. Does that kind of make sense? For some people, classical conditioning really explained it well and helped them to understand what was going on. For others, it was operant conditioning all the way. And for others, it was a mixture of both. But what you're really trying to let me know here is that you understand how classical conditioning is affecting this behavior that you want to increase or decrease with the responses that you feel due to it, and how you understand operant conditioning and those principles. So that's worth 10 points. And then you're going to write all this in such a way that it's clear that you have devoted time and care to planning it, drafting it, revising, and editing and proofreading. The readers I can't be distracted by problems with your sentence, like sentence level concerns, mechanics, punctuation, or other features that would show a lack of care or professionalism. If you've got commas all over the place or not enough commas, and I can't really understand what you're talking about, or it's so distracting because it's just not well written, you won't get all of those 10 points. Does that kind of make sense? And if you have time, I think our writing lab is just great. It's on the 2nd floor of North Shepler. It is in the middle of the hallway. It is a great place to go to have someone proofread your final paper. And if they understand what you're talking about and they'll help you fix some of your punctuation and stuff, that can be a great way to make sure that you get all 10 of those points or most of those 10 points. So feel free to call me, talk with me. At least one student has already turned hers in really early to get feedback. You can turn it in early to get feedback if you want. Now, if you turn it in, the last day of April, I'm not going to have time to read it and give you feedback so you can revise it all by May 1st. So you've got to give me at least a couple. If you're going to turn it in early, give me a couple of days to read it, give you feedback, and then you'll have to have time to make those changes and resubmit it. But we can talk on the phone. My extension at work is 580-581-2315. You can email me and set up a Zoom call time or a time to talk on the phone after you finish that first narrative and narrative observation form and you're trying to think of your behavior modification plan, or maybe you've done the whole thing, but you're getting stuck in the writing it up, then just contact me. I'm here to help you. I want you to succeed. And so I hope this is helpful. All right. Thank you. Goodbye.